Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the Eurovision Song Contest. It's in the headlines today again, in the news around the UK. So basically, as you may know, Ukraine won the Eurovision Song Contest last year, but unfortunately, it's not able to host next year's contest. So with Eurovision, what happens is if your country wins it, you then are responsible for hosting it, unless there's a reason why you can't. So of course, with current events in Ukraine, they have deemed it unsafe to host Eurovision 2023. So, after much discussion, it was agreed that Britain would host Eurovision 2023 on behalf of Ukraine. Now, that's all very well and good, and for those of you who don't know what Eurovision actually is, it's a yearly song contest where countries across Europe get together to have a song contest. It started off with really traditional kind of songs, and it was a concept of peace. But these days, Eurovision can be very political because countries can be excluded and other countries can be included if it's felt that either they simply want to or they're willing to participate. So, for example, even though it's Eurovision, and it started off as a concept for European countries, Australia and Israel are now both members. And I'm unclear on why that is. So the reason why it's becoming a little bit controversial for 2023 is because, firstly, they've increased the costs. And they've done that to make up for a country which they banned last year. So as they exclude certain countries, then other countries have to pay a higher price. The reason for that is because of the use of technology across Europe. It's put out across Europe on a system called Eurovision, which is related to the European Broadcasting Union, and of course that's not free. So Bulgaria has become the latest country to say it will not participate in next year's Eurovision Song Contest. Broadcasters from North Macedonia and Montenegro had already confirmed they would not be taking part in 2023 because of the increased entry fee. Apparently, the BBC News has been told that countries have been asked to pay more to make up for the money lost when a country was banned a few years ago. The EBU, that's the European Broadcasting Union, which organises the contest, has now confirmed that there will be 37 participants in the 2023 competition. How much each participating broadcaster pays to enter is not made public, but the total cost between all entrants normally adds up to around 5 million, with the host country paying a little bit more. Bulgaria, North Macedonia and Montenegro all failed to make it past the semi-final stage of this year's song contest, so they wouldn't have been participating anyway, I guess. The BBC is expected to spend between 8 million and 17 million to stage the event next May on behalf of Ukraine, who won this year's show. Now, just just to clarify, the BBC is not our state broadcaster, so it's just coincidence that Eurovision will be on the BBC. I mean, it usually is anyway, but you should not assume that the BBC is our state broadcaster, even though it does often carry government messages and indeed is used by the royal family. That's more of a historic thing because it's our oldest broadcaster. The UK does not have a state broadcaster. In fact, our government often distances itself from the views of the BBC. And that's because we do not have a mouthpiece in a democracy which can be used by the government. So more and more we're finding, for example, the royals are using different channels now. And there is an opinion that perhaps the BBC should not be favoured in any way, especially these days when there's so much competition. Anyway, Liverpool was chosen as the host city. That's a city in the north of England. They wanted to put it somewhere which was rather impoverished because it will bring great tourism to that area. Glasgow was on the shortlist, so was Liverpool, and Liverpool won, probably because they have more, or they had historically more connections to music, having produced the Beatles and other very, very famous musicians. Liverpool was chosen as the host city partly because of its cultural offer that puts Ukraine at the heart of next year's event, the BBC said. I'm not clear on what they mean by that, but, well, I'm sure they have their reasons. Organisers told BBC News that the European Broadcasting Union is committed to keeping the costs of taking part in the Eurovision Song Contest as affordable as possible. They went on to say each participating broadcaster pays a fee which is calculated based on the number of countries competing in that year's show and their overall contribution to membership of the European Broadcasting Union. Annual membership fees and subscriptions are calculated according to factors that take into account the members' relative size and financial status. It doesn't sound very fair, does it, if they're all paying different prices? But I'm sure that they have their reasons. So Bulgaria won't be participating in next year's Eurovision. All across Europe, Eurovision is very, very popular. I think Malta has something like a 97% or 98% attendance. The people of Malta love Eurovision. But there are other countries, such as the UK and Ireland, where it's seen as something a little bit kitsch or old-fashioned. And now that it has tactical voting and it's more electronic than before, many people don't really connect with it as much. It's no longer a cultural celebration as it is a statement, sometimes against war, but other times there's almost certainly political influence. I don't mean in the voting, although that's part of it, because neighbouring countries tend to vote for each other. But there's something more in the lyrics of the songs, in the fashions, in what's pushed forward. There's certainly a very strong commercial sense of it. I don't think it's any longer just, someone who's voted in by a country and has a chance to win. It's something much bigger involving recording contracts, music, and the music industry. But in this country, it's seen as rather kitsch. I don't think anyone takes it seriously. Although last year was the first year, I think, that Britain came, I think it was second. So they are hoping, I think, that we can be more popular because we usually come last. Okay, so that's it. That's Eurovision. I hope you found this helpful. Let's talk soon. Thank you.